Compact executive cars. They should offer it all. A taste of luxury, an element of fun, impressive comfort, and family-friendly practicality.
But which did you choose between the new Audi A4, the BMW 3 Series, the Jaguar XE, or the Mercedes C-Class?
To help you decide, I'm going to compare their design.
It's less tracksuit and more lounge suit.
Critique their cabins.
It's a bit like I'm sat in an abattoir.
Test what they're like to drive.
And it just corners like it's got claws.
See how practical they are.
The opening is pretty wide.
And finally, explain what you get for your money.
Combined, they have a total of almost £27,000 worth of options fitted to them.
So let's start with the styling, because these cars are all about elevating your status in the corporate car park.
As far as I'm concerned, it's the XE which is the coolest looking of this group, and I'm not biased in any way, shape or form.
Few family cars are as dramatic as this Jaguar. It looks all snarly and angry, like it's about to pounce. But from the back, it actually resembles another car, an Audi A4. In fact, this new Audi A4 looks rather like an A4 too, the old Audi A4. But hey, that's how Audi does things. It doesn't like to rock the boat or your world.
Okay, so while the design might have people questioning whether this is actually the latest version or not, you know, it won't excite, but it's not going to offend anyone either.
The 3 Series is a whole lot more polarising, but then BMW has always been more adventurous with its cars. Well, for the last few decades anyway.
It reminds me of some angry, stingy insect that is quite particular to trim level. For instance, less expensive versions just seem a bit less venomous.
In terms of desirability though, well, it's the Mercedes which looks the most expensive and upmarket. It has a certain elegance the others just can't quite match.
While rivals opt for sporty, the C-Class, as the name suggests, errs on the side of class. It's less tracksuit and more lounge suit. That's the Mercedes way.
It's the same inside. The Mercedes cabin just has a little bit more panache than the others, with plenty of eye-catching styling trinkets. It's just a shame about that knockoff iPad display.
Also, the cheapo entry-level Garmin sat-nav, well, look at it. It's not particularly becoming of a car of this stature now, is it? And even the more expensive Mercedes command system, it's not the nicest thing to use.
The BMW 3 Series, however, has the best system on the market. It's slick, intuitive, and fully connected. And the rest of the cabin is pretty impressive too.
Just think wisely about the colour of interior trim you go for, because that can affect how easy it's going to be to sell the car on when you're finished with it. This red, for instance, it's a bit like I'm sat in an abattoir.
The Audi A4 is far more reserved inside. Like the outside, it's neat, tidy, sensible. But the material quality, well, that seems to be just a little bit of a cut above the rest.
The infotainment system is pretty much as slick as the BMW's. It's really easy to use. And check this out, right? You can get Google Maps for the sat-nav, look at that. And check this out, the virtual cockpit. So I've got a full digital display for the driver, and I can go full screen mappage.
The XE comes with Jaguar's latest infotainment system, and there's even a phone app, but the touchscreen system is the most frustrating of the bunch to use.
And while the Jaguar's interior design, well, it looks really nice, but it just feels cheaper and less well thought out than the Germans. For instance, these air vents are too low, they blow on your hand, and these door armrests are just the wrong height.
And that brings us on to these cars' practicality. And the Jaguar trails the field in this respect by a margin which could actually be a deal breaker. The interior cupboards are limited, the narrow rear door openings make it a bit of a faff to fit a child seat, and it's tight in the back for anyone over 6 foot tall. And 3 is most definitely a crowd, and very uncomfortable for the person in the middle. The boot is the smallest here too, and its awkward shape further limits the amount you can actually carry. Just 2 large suitcases will fit. Plus you have to pay £400 if you want folding rear seats. Even then, the opening to the cabin is very restrictive on what you can actually carry.
The Mercedes has a larger boot, and all versions get a power tailgate. You do have to pay extra on the entry-level model if you want fold-down rear seats, but they lie flat, and the opening is pretty wide.
You can fit larger stuff through the opening than you can in the Jaguar, though the shape of the actual boot opening itself means it's quite awkward to load a bike. But while better than the XE, it trails the other two due to the uneven load area, and this limits how many cases you can fit. This theme continues with the rear seats. They're fine for average size adults, but tall people will struggle for headroom. The middle seat is okay for that passenger, but other passengers on the outside will feel cramped due to the tight footwells. Fitting a baby seat is easy though, thanks to flip-up ISOFIX covers and decent door openings. In-car storage is respectable, however, the glove box could do with being a touch larger.
The BMW's interior cubby spaces, on the whole, are pretty good. It's just a shame that this central cubby is ruined slightly by this pointless, old-fashioned mobile phone charger.
Also, while the front door will hold a large bottle, the rears won't. The back seats are impressive though. There's more headroom than in any other car here, though annoyingly the 3 Series isn't so good for the person in the middle seat as it's raised up too high. Fitting a child seat is fairly simple though, however not quite as easy as in the C-Class. The BMW's boot is better though. While a similar size to the Merc's, the squarer shape means you can pack more stuff in. There's more room with the seats folded, though you have to pay extra for split seats. So, will the A4 fare any better? It's not only got the largest capacity, but its shape makes it even easier to load than the 3 Series. It's class leading in this respect, while 3-way folding rear seats are standard on all models. There's sufficient head and legroom even for tall adults, and it's the least uncomfy of the 4 cars with 3 in the back. Annoyingly though, it has easy to lose ISOFIX covers. Other than that though, fitting a child seat is a doddle, while cubby spaces are good with very large door bins front and back. So, the Audi is the most practical, but is it the best to drive?
Now the Audi A4 is unique amongst its group because it's the only one not available with rear wheel drive. This is actually the front wheel drive version, and okay, so it's not the most fun of the 4 cars to drive, but I wouldn't say it was dull. You know, it still handles very well, and if you go for one of the Quattro all-wheel drive models, it's got bags of grip. And for how people really drive, this thing is perfect because it just goes about its business in the most unflappable fashion. It's the comfiest here, I reckon, especially with the optional adaptive dampers, and it's extremely quiet. It also has the best engines. The 2-litre 190 horsepower diesel in this car is smooth, it's quiet, and in my hands it's doing almost 54 miles per gallon. Can't complain at that.
So, how does the Mercedes fare in comparison?
This is the 250D, and it's got over 200 horsepower, and you really do notice that extra punch over the other cars. It just feels that little bit quicker. Yeah, it gives similar economy. So I'm averaging 51 miles per gallon, which is pretty good. It's just a shame that this 2.1 litre diesel engine is a bit rattly, because other than that, this car is pretty much as quiet to travel in as the Audi A4. Now, if you're buying a C-Class, you want to go for the mid-level sport model because its suspension setup offers the best blend of comfort and handling. That said, it's still not the comfiest car here, nor the most fun to drive, but on the whole, you know, it's okay. And it is the only car in this class that you can actually get with air suspension. The only problem is that's quite expensive, and you might want to save your cash for the automatic gearbox because Mercedes manual isn't that good to use. If you want an all-wheel drive version, unfortunately you're out of luck in the UK because you can't get this car with 4-wheel drive at the moment.
You can get 4-wheel drive with the BMW, and it's fitted to this 320D X-Drive.
Now if you're worried about getting stuck in the snow, just get yourself some winter tyres, save yourself some cash, and then spend it on an option you must have, and that's the adaptive suspension, because without it the 3 Series just doesn't handle or ride as well as it should. Now this car does have it fitted, so in comfort mode it's almost as comfortable as the Audi, yet it's just that little bit more fun when you're on a twisty road, when you have it in sports mode. Also, I think BMW's got the best automatic gearbox, and if you want to change gear yourself using these pedals, well, it's just lightning quick. And you absolutely have to have that automatic gearbox because the manual just isn't as good as the manuals you get in the Audi or the Jaguar. Also, I think this BMW is just a little bit noisier than the other cars here. You seem to get quite a bit of tyre roar, a little bit of wind whistle from around there. But the visibility's all right, you know, it's up there with the best.
In case you're wondering, this car averaged 48 miles per gallon from its punchy but noisy 2-litre diesel. So, how does the engine in the Jaguar compare?
It sounds more like a turbine than a tractor, and I think that's a good thing. And it's a 180 horsepower version, has plenty of poke, and it'll give good economy. So I'm averaging, well, pretty much mid-50s, which is impressive. But my favourite thing about this Jaguar is the fact it's the most fun car of the group to drive. It's got the best steering, and it just corners like it's got claws. And I love the fact that it blends comfort with fun. So as long as you avoid the R-Sport suspension, it's nice and compliant the ride. And unlike with the other cars, you don't really have to upgrade to the adaptive setup to get the best ride quality out of it. It just does so well on the standard setup, and that's really good. And overall, I just love driving this Jaguar, to tell you the truth. The only things that annoy me about it are the fact that, well, you can get quite a lot of road noise just reverberating around the cabin, which gets under your nerves after a while. The automatic gearbox can sometimes be a little bit slow to change down when you want to suddenly accelerate. And I think the visibility is by far the worst out of any of the 4 cars.
And that brings us on to costs and what you get for your money.
Well, all of these models here are pretty expensive, as they're highly specified press cars. In fact, combined, they have a total of almost £27,000 worth of options fitted to them.
However, the BMW 3 Series range starts at £24,380, the Audi A4 £26,350, the Jaguar XE £26,990, while the Mercedes C-Class kicks off at £27,665. But when you match the cars like for like on equipment and engines, there's actually very little between them. Essentially, it will depend on the best price you can get on a particular car with a dealer. So, click on the card in the right-hand corner of the screen to see what deals you can get at carwow.co.uk. So then, where does that leave us?
Well, each of these cars offers something special. The BMW is great to drive. That Jaguar XE just looks fantastic. And the Mercedes is super luxurious. But it's this Audi A4 with this brilliant blend of practicality, comfort, desirability and technology which wins this test. Click over there for individual in-depth reviews of each of the cars in this test. And if you enjoyed this video, please like it, share it and subscribe to our channel. Now, did you know the £45 sliding armrest in the BMW 3 Series is the cheapest option fitted to any of these cars here?